0.5. We are live. Welcome everyone to the podcast. My name is Amit Sodha, your delectable host, and I've got an incredible guest today. And we're going to be having a very deep conversation, I think, about more things than just dating. But we'll start there and see where this conversation goes. To anyone who's watching for the first time, like I said, my name is Amit Sodha. I'm an expert dating coach, among other things, and I love to help people with this area of their lives, but primarily mine, because it all comes down to mindset at the end of the day. But my purpose here on this podcast is to hopefully to give you a moment that inspires you, just in the same way that I've been inspired by books, podcasts, videos, articles, whatever else, the things that have inspired me, and I'm hoping I can recreate that effect for you. So today's guest definitely has more letters at the end of the name than there are in the alphabet. I think in all alphabets. But she is a doctor, but she practices metaphysics as well. So I would love to welcome Dr. Ann Donnelly to the show. We're going to be talking about the metaphysics of dating and other things as well. But firstly, of course, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the audience and tell everyone about you, what you do, how you got to this point in your life, and all the amazing things that you in fact do as well. So, and then we can touch on the dating, because you've written a book about dating as well. So I want to hear some about that.
Amit, thank you very, very much for that lovely introduction. It is just such an honor to be here with you, and thank you for having me. It's just amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Come on, spill the beans. I want to know life story, the full works.
So well, my name is Ann Donnelly. I am living in Ireland, in the northwest of Ireland. And although I travel extensively with the work that I do, my background is that I actually am a GP, but I diversified into palliative medicine, and I work in palliative medicine, both in a hospital and a hospice setting. And alongside that, I have always been very inquisitive about the big questions in life, about what makes us tick inside, about what brings real quality to life. And in particular, to help both the clients that came to me, but also to help myself, I went exploring. And the first avenue I went down was the avenue of yoga. And I went to a yoga class, and I pestered my teacher so much with all the questions that she said, "Oh, Anne, for goodness sake, just go and become a yoga teacher and just, find out the answers." So I did. And then after that, I became more inquisitive about this aspect of the mind and the body connection, and about how my breathing could literally transform a negative thought into a positive thought and get me grounded again and get me feeling my body again and helping me to be more connected to life in general. And then I decided, well, there's something more to this. I feel energetically more alive, and I wanted to explore something like energy. And so I went down the acupuncture path initially, studying with the British Medical Acupuncture Society. That's doctors teaching doctors about acupuncture. And in that, what was very interesting is they described the effects of acupuncture through westernized means. They talked about local endorphin release. They talked about connections along certain nerve pathways, but they didn't talk so much about energy. So I got really inquisitive. And so I decided then to go down the homeopathy route. And again, I studied, it was a wonderful course that taught healthcare professionals how to work with homeopathy. And at that stage, I decided, right, neurolinguistic programming, EFT, and all of these letters that you talk about, I studied many, many areas, both within medicine, but also within that holistic sphere. But it wasn't until 2006, when I stepped into a meditation class with the Modern Mystery School, that I really started to learn about what I had been really inquisitive about, which was about energy, about that advanced spirituality, about the energy that we create by a thought, by the way that we speak, by the way that we hold ourselves, by what we do. And it all came back to this idea of self-empowerment, about really knowing yourself. And it was through the study with the Modern Mystery School that actually led me to explore life in a different way. And when my marriage broke up some years ago, I was devastated, obviously, at the time. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, dating just wasn't on the radar at all. But several years down the line, my dear friends took me by the nape of the neck and they said to me, Anne, this is not good enough. We have to get you on a dating app. This is how you do it nowadays. Now, bearing in mind that I hadn't been dating for 20 years, this was a huge transition for me, a huge transition. And it was such a big life event as well that I decided to write a book about it. And I called it Once Upon a Tinder.
I love that.
And I decided to write about the various experiences that I had, but also the learning that I got from each one. And I put a taste of metaphysics in there as well, because I really feel that unless we truly know ourselves on every level, what we bring to a relationship, what we bring to an encounter with another person can be very, it will be dictated by what we don't know about ourselves. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes sense. It's quite funny actually that because I didn't know about your book until I got the email about interviewing you, and it was just a couple of weeks prior. A friend of mine, she was developing a course to help people who've been through a relationship breakup and getting back on with their lives. And she asked me to do a dating video for her, for anyone who wants to get back into dating. So I did a 20-minute video that she's added to her program. And it was all about, people who've broken up, have been through a breakup and are getting back into dating as well. So I'll mention to her about your book as well. She can add it to to add at the end as well as a resource for people to get as well. But I think that's it's wonderful, isn't it? But it can be for anyone, who has been through something quite traumatic to then go back out there and kind of you put themselves out there, and especially like you said, 20 years, right? And it's funny as well, because I mentioned that in the video, and I said that maybe if you've been out in the dating game for 5 years, you won't see much of a difference, but 10 years, 20 years, that's when you're going to really be like, whoa, what is this? This is like foreign. I guess it must have been like that for you.
It was. But what was really remarkable about it was that I had tools to help me. I wasn't going out there taking things personally. And I think that is really, really important. I'm going to speak as a woman because I am a woman and that was my experience. When I created the profile to begin with, I put very little information on it because I was a little bit tentative. I didn't want people to know too much about me. But then as I got to know people, I realized if I put nothing on it, I'm having to start from absolute scratch. And the inquisitiveness, it becomes more, it's nice for people out there to know what it is that you're about, so that and especially the qualities that you, I suppose, honor in yourself and that you would like to find in someone else. And if they are attracted to that, if they're attracted to qualities that you enjoy most in another person, then that is a really good sign. And I'm just going to show you a little, the little book, because the one thing about it, if it's okay with you, Amit, because the thing about it is it's a tiny, tiny book. It's actually would fit, inside, and it's only a couple of hours read, but there are so many gems in it because it's a living experience. It's like one chapter is dedicated towards what happened. And then the next chapter is exploring, well, how would you cope with that? What would that bring up for you? And how best to manage that situation? Because for me, I found it quite liberating. Going onto an app was very different to meeting someone face to face for the first time. If you go onto an app, if someone isn't treating you right, all you have to do is just, delete. And there is something, I know, there's something wonderful about that. And you also get the opportunity to speak your truth a little bit more easily because you're typing it and you're giving it a thought process. And while you are measuring your words on an app to help the other person to understand, I'm a great believer in the words that we choose to speak because they have an energy behind them. And funny, I started to read, the energy behind the words of the people that were talking, because we are all sensitive beings. We all have this ability. And if you feel that someone, it's just not right for you, then you can either, if you're still interested, ask the person about what they're really feeling, or you can decide to call it quits at that moment in time if it just doesn't feel right in your gut. And this is about reading something from an intuitive perspective, reading something from an inner knowing that we all really ought to be engaging with.
Is it, you just reminded me of a beautiful quote, and I need to remember it before we end this video today, but it's about those things not said that really make a huge difference. And that's one thing exactly what you were saying that I teach people is that we just so often make assumptions isn't quite the right word, but it is those kinds of assumptions about what the other person is thinking, what the intention is behind what they're saying, but without actually clarifying. We can make all of these assumptions, but most of the time we're going to get it wrong. So it's important to get that clarity, and that, that is the art of communication. But it's one of these things that is becoming a lost art because simply people are messaging more and more. So it's one thing I say to people is that get off Messenger as quick as possible. Actually have a real conversation. You'll find it a different thing to messaging back and forth. Did you find that as well? Did you find you were getting a lot of messages, and how did you handle that?
That was interesting because I had a fair idea by what someone was saying, even in the first few sentences, as to whether I really wanted to meet them or not. And I think you have to be very honest, because you don't want to waste. This is another person that you're talking to. It's another being. And, yes, there are certain things that you might want to explore more with someone, but you don't want to waste their time either if it's not just going in the right direction, if you're not feeling that spark, if you're not getting what it is that makes you know that this is something I'd like to explore a little bit more. So honesty is really important. However, honesty, when we're getting to know ourselves, sometimes we can get a little bit emotional about it, especially if you're coming from a breakup. And, you might find that you're spurting out something, very quickly if you are, coming from an emotional space. So it's okay, because each of us has good days and bad days. But if you're just getting to know someone, you want to give them that opportunity to express themselves in a way that gets the best out of each other to begin with, and then as you get to know each other, get more comfortable, then you can open up to those vulnerabilities within yourself. But when it comes to getting to meet someone quickly, it's interesting. On the female side, Amit, I would say that sometimes it depends. I would be asked an occasional question like, do you live alone? And that to me kind of freaked me out a little bit, because I thought, okay, why do you want to know that?
Yes.
So it depends.
Yes, Mr. Robot, I live alone.
It really does genuinely depend on, how the conversation is going as to how quickly I will go to meet someone. But if I think as I gained confidence, I went with that a lot more quicker, especially as I began to know, well, this person I genuinely want to meet. So, yeah. I think it depends. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that completely, and I think actually my follow-on question to that is the whole idea of messaging and how you would handle that situation as well when someone was messaging. What would you normally do? Because like I said, I kind of advise people. I say, look, get onto a phone call within 15 minutes if you can, because if you don't, you end up just wasting your own time. Because these messages can sometimes get longed out to weeks, even months. I've seen it happen. I'm like, why would you ever do that with your own time? It's so precious. Why would you do that? So that was my thinking and stuff. Did you find that was the same for you as well? Were you kind of like, trying to encourage people to call you, or were they just doing it? Or did you have to prompt these individuals, or what did you do?
I find that people would ask for my telephone number quite early on if the conversation was going in the right direction. And depending on, I definitely don't like this conversation that goes on weeks and months. I know that if that's happening, it's not happening.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to see that, really. We're not clicking or not quite that keen, or there's something just not happening. So yeah, I don't like dragging it out. And so it's nice to be able to meet someone. And of course, meeting someone in a neutral space, you're still very protected. You're still managing your own privacy. And if you want to take it further, then you know much more. I would agree. You know much more by meeting someone and whether you're clicking or not.
So do you reveal in the book, or are you going to reveal today? What was the outcome? Did you meet someone, or are you still on that journey, that wonderful journey of meeting people?
Well, it's interesting because the book spanned over a period of about 3 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And as the book finished, I met someone not on the dating app, actually. I met someone in working, in my local hospital. And so we've been dating for a more extended period of time. Yeah. So that's what I say in the book as well. It's not necessarily about, keeping the app, you need to be peeling your eyes for the person who's just walking down the corridor, or the person that you meet in the car park, or, the new person in the neighborhood, whatever it is, you just don't know. Magic is all around us. And when we're clued into that magic, when we express that magic inside ourselves, then we get the opportunity to really live more spontaneously and more openly to what's going on around us. And you never know.
That, it's so true. I'm 100% agreement with you as well. And I used to love being on dating apps, but I actually used to love doing the other stuff more. And so one of the things I used to do just for a bit of a laugh was I would love to chat up waitresses and things like that, right? So I'd go into the coffee shops. And when they asked me for the money, the payment, I'd give them £1 million note. This is fake £1 million note. I said, they'd wake out of their stupor and just be like, "What?" kind of thing. But it was a great spark, great moment to get a conversation going. And my wife thinks I'm a right little tart, for doing stuff like this. But it's it was just so much fun though, just doing little things like that. It didn't have to be boring. It didn't have to just be on the dating apps. And I know with everything that's gone on, with COVID, obviously meeting people, was limited to being online for the longest time. But now things are opening up. You can get back out to doing things, and going rollerblading if you like, going salsa dancing, going mountain climbing, going. I don't know what else. I mean, there's millions of things, right, to possibly mention. And, I think that's where you're more likely to meet someone. Be on the dating apps by of course, great, go for it. You never know. I mean, you may as well explore all options and just see what happens, right, without expectation.
I agree. And it's interesting because quite a few people have said to me that they met their partner on Tinder once the book came out and they were interested in reading the book. But yes, you have to keep your eyes peeled for all options. And it's really lovely that you use this piece, because if you make someone laugh, you're breaking down barriers. You're opening up that energy of connection right away. And you're helping them to relax. And just in that moment, that explosion of laughter is such a good thing. I mean, the amount of, if I even just think about that chemically alone, never mind anything else, your endorphin release, it's the most amazing thing to do. So yes, gentlemen and ladies out there, make someone laugh. That's a really good opener.
Well, exactly. This is what I say to people. The reason I took up stand-up comedy was for that, to make people laugh, because it was just so powerful in breaking down barriers. And I took it at the same time as I went on this dating journey. And it was just magical for me. And I try and encourage people to do the same. Look, even if you're not going to go do comedy, just learn 20 jokes, memorize 20, 30 jokes, and just have them in your armory for those times when maybe the conversation has gone a bit dry, or you just want to make someone laugh for the hell of it for no reason at all. It's just so powerful. I love your sales pitch there as well for the book. After people read my book, they met someone. I love it. That's the
Actually, I do have one incredible story. The lady that she was actually the lady who stood over me. Well, she was actually based in Italy, but she said, right, Anne, how many chapters have you written? How many chapters have you written? When is this going to be published? Let's put a date down. Mirav, when she read the book, she read 2 chapters in the book. And she doesn't mind me saying that she's a single mom. And she felt her life was over when her marriage was over. And, she just wasn't, feeling it. After reading my book, she completely transformed her life. I mean, completely the opportunities that came her way, and she has been just saying, look, Anne, you must tell people about this, you must. And the thing is, it's available on Amazon, so you don't actually have to spend a lot of money on getting the book either. You can have it on your little app. So it's just from the point of view of making life more joyful. A lot of the things that happened to me were really funny as well. And I did learn to laugh at myself a lot more. And I think that made me much more relaxed about meeting people. Laughter is an incredible healer. It's an incredible healer. And yeah, we need to be able to take life a little less seriously at times. And maybe take, especially this idea that a date has to be a certain way. Or I have to have this goal by the end of the date. And actually, while I was, thinking about dating and all the rest, I did look on some of the dating advice sites. And I have to say, it nearly drove me a little bit mad, because there was a lot of things that, if he does this, do this. Or if this is not happening, you must do this. And I thought, oh my God, it actually made me really anxious. Because I thought, oh my God, so this isn't happening. So what's going to happen next? And it's like having to control a situation. We don't have to be in control. We can't be in our heads. We have to be in our hearts about this. And just be yourself with another human being who is doing their best to be themselves, and see what happens. And it won't always work out, but there will always be a learning from it.
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree so much, and I think that this is what people do. They put so much pressure on themselves for no good reason at all. There's no benefit to it, and if you can have fun, my number one rule, if you ever saw my if you ever stumbled across my number one rule is have fun, because if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And if you're anxious, but you're doing something wrong, and that is just my main rule, is having fun. If you can do that, then everything else seems to fall into place. And I speak from experience when I say this. I've seen it happen to me, and it happens to everyone that I coach who takes it on board and does it, and it makes such a difference when you're just having fun. Yeah, it's incredible. So what were your we'll circle back to the dating in a bit as well. I want to tackle a couple of other things as well, but your 3 top takeaways from that whole experience of being out there again after being, with someone for 20 years and going back out there. What's your top 3 takeaways and kind of tidbits of advice for people?
Oh, wow. Well, the number one would be give yourself a little time. You're just coming out of a really significant relationship. And okay, I do know people who just go straight into dating. And if that is what you want to do to be able to get over the relationship, what I would say is you're probably avoiding the pain a little bit. And, it's good to have some forms of distraction. But remember, these are other human beings you're interacting with too. But remember, we're all in this big, I like to call this life a big soup. And we're all different flavors in that soup. And, when we come together, we create unique flavors. And it's like this piece where if we all have our stuff, whatever that is, and the more we are aware of that, and the more honest we are about it, and the more we're working on ourselves, then the more chemistry we can create in something new. And it's interesting, I found a statistic that suggested that depending on how long you've been in a relationship, it can take you about 50% of the amount of time that you're in the relationship to get over the relationship. Well, I don't suggest that I was going to wait 10 years before I was going to go dating again. But I did engage in working on myself. And so that I understood, and the first person that I met, it was such a beautiful healing for me. He was, we were only going to be able to be together for 3 months because he was moving. And he was younger than me. He was Italian and really a beautiful, beautiful soul. And when we connected, I knew how vulnerable I was, but I also got really carried away with the chemistry. It was just so beautiful. And for him, he said he wanted to take it slow. And oh my God, it was such a relief for me, because I had no idea what's the etiquette around the first kiss? What's the etiquette around the first hand holding? What's the etiquette around the first hug? What's the etiquette? I don't know what the etiquette is. And you know, there's so much out there in terms of advice, but at the end of the day, you know, it's you and it's this other person. And it's what you create. There's a third party, and it's what you create together. And you know, for me, he was so gentle, so kind, so he was really cuddly. And for me, I needed lots of cuddles. I needed to be, you know, loved in that way. I needed to be held, and that was so healing for me. And I was able to express myself in that. And we made a decision that we only had 3 months together, that we would make the most of those 3 months. And that we would explore what we wanted to explore inside that time. And oh my God, even that journey itself could have created a book, but it is a chapter.
I love that. There could be a part 2 to your book, right? So we have to wait for that. And yeah, I love that.
Yeah. For me, it was partly about exploring. And I know this sounds a little bit, some people are a little bit touchy about discussing this subject, but for me, it was about rediscovering my body again as well after all that time. Because and intimacy in relationships, that is a huge threshold. And if you're someone who is very, very private and very shut down, and maybe there's been trauma in your life of some kind or another, it's really, really important to know where you are at and to engage with the healing in that, and to not just let anyone, you know, into that space because they feel they have a right. It's about understanding yourself and where you're at, and being able to express that, finding the language, finding the common communication. And so in this, and I'm sorry, I do write about this a little as well, where we as individuals, if we know ourselves, we know what we want, we know what we desire. And then this other individual who's coming into the relationship, my hope is that they know what they want and what they desire as well. And so it becomes a negotiation in between. It's not, and you know what, it's the art of communication allows us to bring what we have to the mixing pot, to the big soup. And you know, from that perspective, then we can create something new. And looking back on the relationships that I had, or the connections that I had, each one was completely unique. So having the advice that tells you, if this happens, do this. I know that if I used that advice in certain circumstances, it would have been a complete disaster. So we have to learn about each other, connect with each other, and make it dynamic. Make it something that's growing and evolving, not only you, but the other person. And together you're creating something that's evolving as well. That's what real connection is. And I think that's what we are all looking for. You know, at some stages in our lives, people might feel that they want, you know, the quick, there's different kinds of love, okay? I write about the 7 different kinds of love. And one of them is this type of love that's very connected with apps, where you just meet someone, it's all frivolous, it's all nice, you connect, maybe you have intimacy, maybe you don't, and then you never meet each other again. And, you know, that kind of connection is a form of meeting someone. It's a form of love. It's a kind of love that gives a little piece, but not everything. And as an individual, unless we really know ourselves through the study of metaphysics, truthfully, we don't know what we're giving. And it's really interesting, because we are only conscious of a tiny proportion of who and what we really are. And it's through that study that we really get to know ourselves. And then we're not operating out of a subconscious or unconscious way as much, because we're exploring all of that all the time while we're exploring metaphysics. It's the study of life. And it's that study that gives us that knowledge that we are more than this meat and bones, that we're not just the physical. And that is what my classical training educated me as in medicine, that we're this physical body. I studied right the way down to the tiniest cell, right the way up to the mechanisms of that, right the way up to the organs, to what puts us together. And of course, we have specialties that give us a knowledge of that, but there's more. There's so much more. There's our emotional body. There's what's gone before. There's our psychology. There's the way that our mind works. There's our divinity. And when we go there with that divine masculine, that divine feminine meeting, oh my God, it takes things to a whole other level. And true intimacy. Do you know my favorite film to watch?
Oh yeah, what's that? Tell me.
It's actually called, and I mean, I watched this so many times when I was really in the doldrums about my marriage and about different relationships, but it's called The Love Guru.
Oh,
it has
one.
It's Mike Myers.
Mike Myers and Deepak Chopra's in the film, I think. At
Yes!
some point. Yeah, another one. Yeah, I think I blogged about it years ago. Yeah.
I absolutely love that film, because, I mean, it's interesting because he breaks down that word intimacy into EIC.
I love that. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I love that. And you know what? That's such a nice way to kind of bookend that your experience, and such a powerful sharing. But it's a lovely way to segue onto the next question I wanted to ask you as well, because we'll definitely come back to the dating. But I would like, because obviously I was fascinated by your bio when I saw it, and all the things that you've done, you've practiced in your life, and all the areas you've studied and excelled at. And I wanted to know, because like you, I study so many different areas of life. I've never gone and taken any exams, but I love learning. Learning is just a constant thing for me. Every day, if I'm not learning, I don't feel me. But I want to know, like, how you've come to balance some of the more traditional stuff that you've learned, like medicine, with the metaphysics. Do you find, are you ever in conflict on a day-to-day basis with what you have to do from a professional, duty standpoint to what you actually know better of from an energy standpoint? Do you ever find yourself in that kind of conflict, and what do you do about that?
I love this question. Amit, because honestly, okay, I feel that I was born to do what I do, which I feel that I am a bridge between these pieces, because when I was growing up, okay, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I ended up in medicine, and then why it evolved, and why I want to marry both to a degree. And I hear what you're saying, because, okay, I'm going to give you a little example. When I had it's going down another route perhaps, my COVID vaccine, I have so many beautiful friends who are in the medical field. I have so many beautiful friends who are in the holistic field. And I got a little bit of flack from my holistic friends who, weren't actually believing in COVID, never mind the vaccine, way back, because I was one of the first million on the planet to get, vaccinated. So I have to say that I always go with that inner understanding and that inner knowledge that comes through me. And I don't, I on a daily basis explore what that is. And I educate myself on the pros and cons of different pieces. And I make the decision that best resonates with me at that time. Now, as a child growing up, I am a farmer's daughter, and I saw that life-death cycle in my little friends, the little animals on the farm, on a constant basis. And I refused to believe that my little friends were gone after the death cycle. I was this, really avid advocate of something that was proved to me when I went to school, which was this Einstein's theory, energy is neither created nor destroyed. And oh my God, I held on to that with, gusto. and then when I came to medicine and I started to learn about the physical body, I experienced a lot of, for the first 3 years, I was experiencing this rote learning, like learning an encyclopedia of knowledge. And I felt quite depressed during that time, if I'm honest. It didn't feel as if it was me. But in my third year at medical school, and it was taught very differently when I was going through medical school, I graduated in 1992. I met my first patient face to face, and it was in a hospital, and he had a terminal illness. And honestly, Amit, as I speak, my heart blew open. I felt a physical blossoming of my heart in that moment when I met him. And I knew in that moment, that is why I am here. I knew that meeting this individual, I could make a difference. And actually, it almost brings me to tears when I think about it. I was there with 2 other medical students, and he was probably, looking back now and the knowledge that I have, he was probably in the last weeks of life. And, when I was studying medicine, I came out the other side, I had my GP certificate saying, I can prescribe now, I can make people better. But I realized that these beautiful individuals that were coming into me, and my ethos when I was in medicine was, this could be my brother, this could be my sister, this could be my mom, this could be my dad. And so I met people with that when they came through the door, and I listened to their story, and I really wanted to help. And I realized that my prescription pad was inadequate. It was a piece in the puzzle, but it was not everything. And it was then that I went exploring. Firstly, I wanted to make myself good at what I was doing. I wanted to make sure that I was physically well enough. That's why I started on the yoga path initially. I wanted to know that I was strong, that I was flexible, that I had something that kept me calm in a day that just had so much to do. In those days, it was 7.5 minutes per patient. It's not much longer now, but it was.
I thought it was longer back then, actually, than not. I thought it was like at least 15 minutes back then, but now it's less. It's 10 minutes or something. I don't know. What is it? What is the?
It was 7.5 then, 10 minutes now. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can always book a double appointment if you feel that it's something that's needed. That, and of course, now we have the interface since COVID. It's more separation and more separation. And so people are having to take some responsibility themselves as they've been separated from that paternalistic way of looking at the medical world, where we have it all figured out and we do this for you. The medical world was also in that, oh my goodness, here is something that we really have to explore. We don't know all the answers, but we are going to use the scientific model to do the best that we can for you. And that is effectively what medical models do, but they are slow to change. And the one thing that really fastened things up was the incidence of COVID within our world. And it was also a great gatherer together of the greatest minds on the planet, and also people with money. So there was an economic push behind it. And okay, people can say, well, they wanted to make money out of it. But look, that is the money world. Money is meant to generate money so that people can do what they need to do in the world. We need to see this as, something that we can work with. If you find something doesn't have a good aspect to it, you have to rework that energy so that it's like redirect. We call it redirecting within metaphysics. We redirect the energy of something that isn't going down a correct path, or isn't going down a path that is of the highest light. So you use it to the highest of your ability. And for me, I chose to have the vaccine because I was working with vulnerable patients. And I wanted to be able to travel again as soon as I could to keep helping people. Just as you say, Amit, some of us are driven by that desire to help, to reach out, to make a difference in the world. And I wasn't going to let COVID stop me. And I know that governments had to make difficult decisions during that time. And vaccination was one of those. So, we have to do the best we can given any one situation. So when it came to studying, I stepped into a meditation class in 2006. And that changed my entire concept of what it is to be human. Oh my God, it just opened up the floodgates. I had studied extensively acupuncture, homeopathy, emotional freedom therapy, neurolinguistic programming, and each one gave me an added tool to put into my rucksack I was carrying around with me when I would see patients, when I would see clients. And I felt as if I was building on that. But when I stepped into that class, it was as if the ocean opened up in front of me, an ocean of knowledge. And guess what the crux of that was?
What's that?
The crux of it is a mystery school. Written above the gateway to every mystery school on this planet are the words, know thyself.
Yeah.
Know thyself.
It reminds me as well, when you said that, it reminds me of the Rumi quote, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are an ocean in the, you are the entire ocean in a drop. And I love that quote. It's so powerful, so true.
Yes. And actually, again, Amit, that brings back one of the Hermetic principles that we use in metaphysics, which is that as within, so without. So the principle of creating peace in our world within the modern mystery school is that we create peace within one person at a time, because that has that ripple effect within our homes, within our relationships, within our communities, within our entire world. And it's from there that we start with the individual. And if you want to study, with the Modern Mystery School, it's really simple. You click on the website and you find someone in your area. It's modernmysteryschoolt.com, modernmysteryschooluk.com, modernmysteryschoolireland.com. It's, and you find yourself a guide in that area. And I am a guide within the mystery school. I over those years of study, I became so convinced with transformation within people's lives. And I mean transformation in a way when people get to know about energy, about their energy structure, about how their own divinity is called forth within their lives to wield that energy, that they can become ultimately incredible creators of their own life, their own story that they are living in this lifetime as the central actor, the central actress in this lifetime, and creating that story. What story would you really want to choose for yourself? And those stories can be unfolded through a process of initiation. In the mystery school, we use meditation, we use sacred ceremony, we use initiation to help people to understand themselves better. And although it's called a school, it's really about remembering. because all of this knowledge is already inside of us. So it's like that spark, it's alchemy, true alchemy. It's like starting that catalyst within yourself so that the unfoldment of your life, you start learning those lessons faster and faster and faster. You're actually living more than one lifetime inside this lifetime. You're actually able to accelerate your learning process, your ability to learn the lesson. Everything that life presents us is an opportunity to learn. And okay, there's letters after my name, but my God, if you think of the lessons that come in everyday life.
Yeah, so true, so true.
And the thing about the mystery school is it's open to everyone, every walk of life. And, you know, we have many testimonies to show that no matter what walk of life, no matter what religious background you come from, you have an opportunity to expand on that and to make your engagement with life so much more meaningful at every level, through your work, your relationships, your play, whatever it is.
Wow, I think I was just about to go. It's so. I mean, I've got so many things to say about what you've just said. I mean, it's like you're partly reading my mind as well, which I love. But it's fascinating because I see on one hand this generation of medical professionals coming through who are kind of teaching lifestyle medicine. So they're kind of like the halfway house to that point, and I think we've got a long way to go in that respect. But everything you say, it's so funny because this is exactly what I say to people. When I say to people, I'm a dating coach, I say, look, that's just a word, that's just a role. But and it's one area of your life that, you know, I help you with. But, you know, I do so much more. And there's so much more to it that involves us. Like I say to everyone, like, you know, there's a difference between soul and role. You as a doctor, that's your role. But actually who you are as a soul and who we are as a spirit, it's very different. When you understand that, like when you understand the person opposite you, you and them are one. Don't treat them as someone who is not you, because you know, you're always going to feel, you know, treat them in a different way. But if you see them as part of yourself, an extension of you, then, you know, the whole interaction is going to be very, very different. If you're making them laugh, you're going to make yourself laugh. If you make them feel good, you're going to feel good. You know, this is beyond karma as far as I'm concerned, but I agree. It's a different way to engage with the world, a different viewpoint, a different understanding, a different level of energy and everything else. And I just love what you're saying as well. And I wish, you know, I wish, but I know more people will start to remember this kind of information, start to realize how wonderful they are, how amazing they are. There's so much more beyond what we often just see ourselves in the mirror. And, you know, we all forget from time to time. We all sort of have that moment where we look in the mirror and go, is that how I look? You know, kind of thing. And then we have to remind ourselves of just how incredible and, you know, divine and God force you are. You know, the one thing I say to people is that, you know, you are God force manifested into individuated spirit. And, you know, if you could spread that, if I could help spread that message more and more to people, that's one thing I would share, is that go beyond this idea of just us being little individual meat sacks, as they like to call it, right? You know, on this tiny planet in a vast universe. Actually, you are, and that's the whole point of that Rumi quote, you are that universe. You are that universe who's just come into this one particular form to experience one perspective of the entire whole, and that is it. And I just love what you're saying as well. And I think it's beautiful. And I don't want to steal your time because I want to ask you some more questions as well. But I just wanted to say I love what you said about kind of how you've brought the balance between the two and how you're sharing this message to people, and people are awakening to that as well. And so following on from what you said as well, have you found that you've been able to affect change in your environment where you are, and things have been taken on board? And if so, what has been taken on board?
Well, first of all, just to recount, I am a great believer in this concept of opposites. And I'm really glad you brought this up, because you were saying that you almost feel as if medicine is in one polar area and healing is in another polar area. But what unites us is the desire to bring wholeness and health. So it's like one of the things, and I'm just going to mention this because it's about bringing opposites together. And we think about that in the dating world. You know, there couldn't be anything more opposite than a male and a female.
Yes,
in so many ways. So this concept of opposites and where those two circles intersect, what we create in between. And the study within the school of the universal Hermetic Ray Kabbalah teaches us about those opposites, because it takes things like severity and mercy, and where, you know, good boundaries and showing love, about knowing ourselves and acknowledging the other. And it's where all of those apparent opposing forces come together. And it's where those opposing forces come together is where literally miracles can happen. Miracles, okay? So yes, locally, for example, we have an amazing cancer center, the Northwest Cancer Center, which is where I work in palliative medicine. But alongside that, we have a center, a Macmillan Center, where we have holistic therapies for patients and their relatives. And that includes psychology, holistic therapies. It includes, wig fitting if that's required, or the different pieces that bring quality to someone's life and meaning to someone's life when they're going through such an arduous journey. Now, I also had the opportunity, our local college approached me to help them to create a foundation degree in holistic therapies. And we were completely convinced that we wanted to get it into the science division rather than the beauty division. Not that there's anything wrong with the beauty division, but we wanted the therapists, when they came out, to be able to have that weight behind them when they went to the medical communities and said, look, I would like to offer my services as a holistic therapist for your patient, and this is my certificate.
Yeah.
So, and that was the amazing thing about it, that we were able to create a foundation degree that gave people that accreditation. So we have holistic therapists that work in our hospice as well. We have, since COVID, we haven't been able to open our day center, which has been such a pity. But up until that point, we had therapists coming in and giving of their time, both, again, for patients and for relatives. So yes, we can work alongside each other. And within my metaphysical studies and the treatments that I do, I work from home, but I also travel. In Ireland, I travel to Belfast, Dublin, Cork, and Galway, and also internationally teaching with the Modern Mystery School and doing my healing work here in Ireland. And personally, the first place where anyone's going to start is with a life activation. And a life activation is literally where we bring light. You've undergone hundreds of hours of training to do this. And this is where I felt safe. Before I came to the Mystery School, I had studied different energy therapies. But within the Mystery School, it's like a structure that helps you to feel safe when you are working with energy. And we have to understand that, everything is energy. The way we do something, the words we speak, the thoughts we think. And we are taught a great deal in the Mystery School about the alpha state of being, that state of being where you bring your mind to that quiet pond so that you're able to be free-flowing to the energy that comes through for another individual. You literally take yourself and you set yourself aside. A bit like we were saying earlier about teaching meditation, about setting the chattering mind aside and not letting it influencing that quiet pond. And you are trained on how to do that, how to hold that. But that has an incredible effect on your own life. Because then when those challenges come up for us in life, when you have, it's like that quiet space within the tornado. When you have that ability to hold that, it actually brings calmness to those around you as well. It has that effect. Do we still have emotions? Yes. Aren't emotions great?
Yeah.
But again, they teach us. We're able to find them as more a language for the soul to speak, rather than coming from the past hurts. Because when we work on emptying the subconscious mind using the Universal Hermetic Ray Kabbalah, which is yoga for the Western mind, then we're able to come more from that quiet pond, that stillness with everything that we come to. So yes, I have seen changes with my clients where they can say, I have some beautiful testimonies that they say that the things that used to annoy them in life are like, I don't know if you know the saying, like water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
It's like that doesn't bother them anymore. And so you can imagine that improves the quality of your relationships as well, because the little irritations, they're not irritations anymore. So yes, these things are really important. We as we work on ourselves, as we grow and evolve, as we understand ourselves better, then we can bring more and more consciously to our life, to our work, to everything that we do.
Beautiful. I love that. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw in a few quick questions as well. So, doctor, I'm someone who, I'm just as hypothetical, I'm someone who drinks, eats lots of meat, and I'm not feeling so great. I walk into your office. What do you tell someone who's in that position that's different to when they walk into their probable local GP?
Okay. Well, if I know that about them, I'm already having that conversation, and I'm asking them how they feel about it. Because that's the number one piece is, do they want to change? And while we have this physical body, and this is it, we can decide that we want to acknowledge just this physical life. I don't want to acknowledge anything else. It's a painful place to be, I'll be honest. But people have the right to choose that. And if they want to explore more, then I say to them, look, there are ways to do this. And I know within the NHS, within our local, certainly within our local community, we have many ways, many good people who can help with different aspects, including dietary advice. It's sometimes hard to change completely if you've been a meat eater all your life. I'll be honest with you, being a farmer's daughter, I ate meat probably for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right the way up until I had an epiphany when I was in medical school. And, it was one weekend where I always digress with little stories. Sorry about that, Amit. You can stop me.
No, I love them. I love the stories. Tell me. I want to know.
You can't stop me if I'm digressing too much. But actually what happened was I watched a film that really upset me. It showed, people fighting with knives, and they were gutting a pig at the same time. Anyway, not a very nice film. But what happened was I went to bed that night. How sad, never mind. I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning, and I opened the fridge door, and there was the meat sitting, defrosting, and its blood in the fridge, and the tears came. Oh my God, it floods and floods. And I rang up a dear friend who was a vegan. I said, I have to cook dinner for 7 girls tomorrow. What am I going to do? And I never want to eat meat again. And bless him, he said, don't worry, I'll meet you at the bus. I'll have a little diagram done out. He was an architect student. You should have seen that diagram. It had perspective in it. It was amazing, of vegetable lasagna and baked potato. And nice. I'd never used the oven in our in our house, and it took me 2 hours to make the dinner that night, and everybody's tongues were hanging out, and they said, Anne, we're taking you off the rota for making dinner. Find yourself. Go find yourself. I think life has been a series of going to find myself. And I did. I bought lots of little books on how to become vegetarian, and it started just one step at a time. It doesn't have to be all at once. And I think that's maybe a mistake that people make, is they feel, oh, I want everything to be all at once. But one of the things I advise in my practice is that I do recommend a life activation. I know that sounds a little bit way out there, but it is an energy healing that helps you to really know what's good for you. It helps you to find in yourself what resonates with you most. And maybe it is eating meat. Maybe you do need lean meat as part of your diet. Maybe you want to source it more ethically speaking. Maybe you want to source it from, and maybe that will make you eat less as it becomes a little bit more expensive, and you're finding other alternatives to fill in. There are lots of ways of engaging and being a good person in this world. And, engaging, what's right for you. You have to find out what's right for you. It's a bit like that consultation. I had a really funny one I'm going to tell you just gently about. It was about a patient that I asked, but you have options here. There's this or there's this. What would you like to do? And they said, oh, you're the doctor. Please, you tell me what to do. And I thought, oh. But that paternalistic approach is what some people still desire. But most people are outgrowing that now. We know more. We're connected to Google. We have much more information. But of course, that's not always a good idea because there's a lot of negative information out there too. And it's how to manage that. Number one recommendation, meditation. Even if you don't, gel with it right away, keep trying. And every Wednesday night at 8:30, I teach meditation, a max meditation technique. It's on my website, anndonnelly.co.uk, and you can find the link there. And 8:30 UK time, Ireland time, you can join. It's a little Zoom link, and everyone's welcome because it just, and I dedicate that every Wednesday night. Some people come to join me in the physical, but for the most part now, it's obviously on Zoom, and it's completely free of charge. I want everyone to develop a meditation process because I know that's going to create peace within. And hence peace in our communities. And that's really what we want now. This thing about reacting to the latest story that's out there, or reacting to, we need to come from an inner knowing within ourselves so that we can respond from an acknowledgement of how we feel inside. And we're bombarded with so much information. It's like we're reacting to that rather than responding from an inner knowing within ourselves. The life activation will really open you up to that. It's a technique that we use within the mystery school to help people to understand themselves better. Initiation gives you the tools to wield energy in your everyday life, where you can uplift yourself. You can redirect your own mood when you find yourself getting low. That's a huge piece of empowerment right there. And the initiatory process is 2 days. It's called Empower Thyself. It's 2 days of really getting to know us as human beings, our process of engagement with life, and gaining the tools to re-wield and reweave your life the way you desire. And you're as a co-creator in this life. It's incredible. So yes, what do you want would be the first question I would ask. And give them then the tools to explore what they want to explore. Everyone has a prerogative in this life. It's not about us dictating to each other. It's about us exploring together what really works. And that is about unity. Something that really brought us together was COVID. Together in a commonality. Yes, there were a lot of things that people were protesting about, and so we became more aware about how we felt about things inside. But were we reacting, or were we responding? We need to learn to discern inside ourselves, and that is a primary thing that we teach in the mystery school, is to discern what really is right for each individual. And then it's like those polar opposites. Once we find all those amazing flavors inside our soup of life, and we get them to come together a little, it's that commonality that we find and where the miracles can happen together. Don't be afraid of opposites. Don't be afraid of someone who looks completely different to you. That's someone you really want to explore. You want to know, what it is that they desire in life, what it is that makes them tick. Don't be afraid to explore someone else. Don't be afraid in your dating life to explore someone else. And maybe it is someone who's completely opposite to you, and maybe that's what's going to create the spark and the friction that's going to create something really magical. We don't know. And we don't know unless you try.
That's a nice way to end that, because I did a little video on my TikTok about that. Is it like attracts like, or is it opposites attract? And I think that's a good conversation. But I love that. I love what you said about that, reacting versus responding. And I think that could become a whole podcast in and of itself. So
yes.
What I'm going to do, we've been going over an hour, and that's absolutely.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry.
No. I absolutely love it as well. We can carry on going if you want to, but we'll kind of, start to bookend it there. But definitely, I would love to have you back. But what I wanted to do was do two main questions for you now to round off.
Okay.
First question would be, for anyone out there listening into this, obviously we started talking about dating, so we'll end on that note. The key we spoke, obviously the title was The Metaphysics of Dating. So the keys for someone wanting to manifest their ideal partner, what are the main things they need to know and do for themselves to manifest the partner they desire? So that'll be question one. And then question two, to round off as well, if you want to tell anyone else about how to get in touch with you, how to reach out with you, do your meditation or your website or anything else, feel free to give everyone the details of how they can connect with you.
Thank you, Amit. Well, first of all, the number one thing is know yourself. Know yourself. I do have in the book a full chapter on how to really, really love yourself. Because unless we really love ourselves, then expecting someone else to fill that in for ourselves is not reasonable. So there will be aspects of ourselves that we like more than others, for sure. And so it's about engaging with that. It's about engaging with those aspects of ourselves that we want to nurture more, that we want to love more, that we want to work on. Once you start engaging, then you're going to attract, that person who either will help you with that or act as your hindrance so that you can stand up for yourself in that. So that you can say, well, no, this is the way I really want to do this. This is what's really important to me right now. And it's beautiful to say that. It's very liberating to say that, but saying it in a loving way. We don't have to put someone else down because we don't agree with them. We can find that commonality. Say, well, actually, that's not the way I see that. Maybe we can have a conversation about that. So number one, look after yourself. Number two, do the things that make you feel wonderful. For me, it's like if I'm in a medical world, I can't wear nail varnish, and this is just a little thing for me. So I have to deplete all my nails of everything. But the first thing I do, when I come out of that medical world, is I get the paintbrush out because it makes me feel wonderful. Do you know? A salt bath. Oh my God. It works wonders, not only for you physically, but for you energetically. Drink lots of water, because as you drink water, you're going to find that you're flushing out the old and you're welcoming the new. It's actually energetically really good for you as well. Mm. So these things, learn how to nurture yourself. It's all, there's actually a chapter on that in this. But
I took the doctor's orders. Yep, got my water.
Yay! So yes, nurture yourself, love yourself, and then when you begin to put yourself out there, be honest. Be honest, because if you create a false identity, it's basing something on a falsehood, and it's going to crumble eventually. Just be honest, and you will be amazed at what comes back at you. When you're honest. And if you want, for me, working on all of that is a skill and a set of skills. And if you want to learn how to do that more in terms of working on yourself, in terms of working on that energy that I talked about working on that, please contact me at anndonnelly.co.uk. You will find a link to Amazon as well on that. Ooh, there we are, Once Upon a Tinder. And you will find Once Upon a Tinder on Amazon.com as well. It's published there. So please think about those things. If you decide to act on them, great. If you don't, great. Enjoy your life. Be in joy. And joy is the core to our essence. That is actually how we are really meant to live our lives. Finding that joy in every moment. So please, whatever you do, do that.
I love that. I love that. That's so powerful and a good way to round off the podcast. And I wanted to say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your insights, your time. And obviously sharing the learnings from your whole journey of dating as well. I think which I think is more precious than anything. So that is very much appreciated. So I wanted to say thank you for coming on the Feel Inspired podcast. It's been wonderful to have you as a guest, and I'm sure we could easily speak for another 48 hours and without breaking a sweat. So it's probably a good time to end before we get carried away. But I've loved every minute of this, and I wanted to say thank you one more time for coming on board as well. It's been lovely to connect, and I will definitely stay connected with you as well.
Amit, can I just say it has been a joy, a pure joy, just spending this time with you and learning more about you and what you do as well. Really, really impressed, and I'm just glad that you exist in this world. Thank you so much for having me.
My wife will say the same as well.
Oh, that's so lovely. That's so lovely. She's a very lucky lady.
Oh, bless. Can you say that a bit louder? I don't think she heard you upstairs.
You can just play that little bit, put it into a little GIF and put it there all over and over and over again.
That's my ringtone. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. And for anyone who's either watching this live or watching the replay, I will add all of the links in so you can connect with Dr. Ann as well, wherever she may be, on Instagram, on her website, and her meditations, and everywhere else in the universe. So once again, I just want to say thank you again for being here. And you've been listening to the Feel Inspired and watching the Feel Inspired podcast. And I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Well, just stay with me. I'll end the broadcast now. Ciao.